Hello, party people, and welcome to another episode of Office Hours CTI Geek. Hello from Virginia, he says. Just got back. See, I should preface this. I don't have a mute button on my Stream Deck, and I totally should. I just had my butt kicked by something that felt like COVID but wasn't. As far as I can tell, I took two COVID tests, and I tested negative both times. But really bad coughing, fevers, chills, totally lost appetite, didn't lose the sense of smell or taste. But whoa, it was a rough few days. And it happened to both me and Eve, which was pretty wild. For a while there, our hypothesis was that maybe Eve brought something back over from China. Eve just came over from China. How Renegade subscribed to Tier 1 for 21 months straight. That is fantastic. I should turn down that crazy clapping just so it doesn't get too loud on there. Jim Van Allen, good morning. Good to see you. CTI Geek says wife and daughter came back from Vegas with the same thing and the COVID tests are negative. I have no idea what on earth is going on out and around here. I thought for a while maybe it was the pneumonia thing from China, but that doesn't appear to be the case. But I'm very happy. It's just after 10 a.m. here in Vegas, and in 1 hour, my Porsche 356 comes back from mechanical restoration. Those of you who follow my personal blog over at ozar.me will remember that maybe about 7, 8, 9 months ago, I got a Bally Blue Porsche 356, 1964. And had been parked in a garage for the last 20 years, and the owner had passed away. So just got the mechanical restoration done. The engine was rebuilt, brakes, suspension, tires, all that completely new. Still looks exactly the same on the outside. Wanted to keep the antique look and feel, but it's all new underneath, which will be a ton of fun. Jim Van Allen, thanks for 10 months worth of subscription there with Prime as well. SQL Pilot, Happy New Year to you as well. DK Kimbo says he bought it because it matches his living room curtains. I don't have any living room curtains. I don't think we have curtains anywhere in the house. No, that's not true. We have black curtains in the theater for our blackout home theater type stuff. Gawabunga, Happy New Year. So let's get into some of these questions. Some of these questions, it's a snowstorm in Denmark. It's actually kind of cold here. You notice that I'm wearing a sweatshirt. It's not just because I was, doing the sick thing, and I was actually around the house in like sweats for like a week straight. But because it's near freezing here when I wake up in the mornings, it gets up to pretty nice, comfortable temperature during the day. But in the evenings, it hits freezing. His first question comes from DBANoob, who says, we have entity framework code that generates randomly generated temp table names every time it runs, giving us thousands of single-use plans. I've tried warning the developers, but no luck. Any classes cover this? Yes. The plan caching module in the the mastering server tuning class. Mastering server tuning class, check out the plan caching module. Next up, we have Dom, who says, hi, Brent. You often mention SAN backups for very large databases. I Googled, but I wasn't able to find information about how we can do point-in-time recovery. You're not going to find it out on via Google. It's going to depend on what the make and model of your SAN is. So you got to get together with your SAN administrator, and then they can share the documentation with you. For some reason, SAN vendors hardly ever put their documentation out in Googleable formats. It's really weird how that works. I don't know why. But it definitely is possible with every kind of SAN that I've seen out there. But get with your SAN administrator there. Next up, Bruno asks, is it safe to install the Microsoft ACE OLEDB provider on SQL Server? Dude, I don't even know what the Microsoft ACE OLEDB provider is, so I have no idea. Hopefully someone from the comments in a later replay will be able to give you an answer to that. I'll be honest, though, I wouldn't run SSIS doing input-output of Excel files on a production SQL server. I would always start a separate VM for SSIS and run SSIS on its own VM because you're probably going to need to interface with lots of files. You're going to install lots of drivers on there. Might as well just do that on a separate standalone machine where you can do that kind of maintenance anytime you want. Next up, MyTeaGotCold says, do you still send out the 6-month DBA training plan on Wednesdays? Yes. I don't think I've seen one in months. Well, remember, it does only last for 6 months, and after 6 months, you've graduated, and there are no more to send you. Next up, KyleDevDBA says, hi, Brent. You recently mentioned the Cercle music videos for when you need to focus. I love those things. I was just watching them before this particular stream. It says, does it ever have the opposite effect and you end up staring at the beautiful scenery for an hour? Not when I'm working, because I just throw it in a tab. I've got a bunch of pinned tabs in my browser, and I don't even see the videos. But I actually run it on my TV in the kitchen. So in the kitchen, we've got a TV where we just run music videos and background stuff all the time. And in there, I have friends come over and, we'll be having a conversation and they'll be staring up at the TV, looking at the Cercle music videos, which also tells you that I'm probably a boring conversationalist. Pepé Le Pew says, what are the top smells that a given SQL agent job is really app code that should be moved elsewhere? Pepe, this is such a great question, and I have a really easy answer. When the job fails, who knows how to troubleshoot it? Like if the T-SQL throws some kind of error, it doesn't find the results that it's looking for in tables. If the only person who knows how to do that is a developer or someone else who's outside of a DBA group, then that belongs in an app server. If the only one who knows how to troubleshoot the code is the database team, like if it's Ola Hollengren's maintenance scripts, then it probably belongs on the SQL Server. I'm not saying you should never use app code in SQL agent jobs. Just try to avoid it, and that's your big sign. If the DBA says, I have no idea what I'm running or what this does, then they really shouldn't be responsible for doing that kind of thing. Scooby says, is that Beany in your mastering slide deck? I have like 5 or 6 mastering slide decks, so I'm not exactly sure which, 5 or 6 mastering classes, each of which has like a dozen slide decks, so I'm not exactly sure. Next up, Ezra says, how do you perform automated tests with the first responder kit? We don't, and it's so funny that you mentioned that. There's a blog post coming out on BrentOzar.com in January. All my blog posts for January are already scheduled. They're in the can, all in the queue, ready to go. There's one coming out on that talking about the challenges of doing that. About 3-4 years ago, boy, it's probably even 5-6 years ago, I hired a couple of consultants, different consultants from different companies who specialize in automated testing. And I said, okay, here's the challenge. Get automated testing working with this. And in both cases, they said, we don't see a way to do that. Not in any kind of cost-effective way that wouldn't cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to pull off. So now I'm challenging the readers. I hope the state of the art has changed. I don't think it has, though. We'll be curious to see what the comments say. Persephone says, how would you rate ChatGPT's ability to explain what a complicated piece of T-SQL code is doing? I've never tried it. I haven't tried it, so I couldn't tell you. It says, will this end the need for users to document their T-SQL code? No, because the thing that really matters in documentation isn't the what is this code doing? It's why is this code doing it? Why are we setting sales tax to 8.5% higher than we expect it to be? Why are we marking customers who look like this as a higher risk for chargeback? Why are we doing this? And that why is the thing that ChatGPT or any automated documentation thing can't really help you with. Jessica says, unit testing SQL is still really hard. Yeah, and it only gets worse when you're talking about system DMVs too. Darth Insidious says, when you've got inline TSQL comments using the -- sign syntax, do you know of any good SQL tools that can strip that out and replace it? No, unfortunately, I do not. Renegade Larson with the 5 gifted subs. Thank you, Renegade Larson. That's very cool of you. Those of you who got a gifted sub, please feel free to say thanks to Renegade Larson over there in chat for gifting you ad-free viewing here of your office hours. My friend Ass says, how are you, Brent? You can tell in my voice that I'm recovering from illness there. Montrose says, Happy New Year to you and your loved ones. Are there things to look out for as gotchas when a database has both RCSI and snapshot isolation enabled? Yes, and I can't remember what they are. This is one of those things that sticks back in my memory that I remember both Kendra Little and Eric Darling getting really animated about this, like when they found people who had them both turned on. They got really animated about the problems involved with it, and I don't remember what they were. But so that would be, if you want to find out more about that, that would be a great question to ask over at Stack Exchange, would be a good place to do it. Surly Dev says, well, you will party hard. Well, yes, it's pretty much always for me. RacerX says, do the parallel racing stripes in an estimated query plan operator indicate that parallelism will also be used in an actual query plan operator as well? No, and I'll go one up higher than that. Just because you see parallelism racing stripes on an actual query plan does not mean the query went parallel across multiple cores. You can learn more about that in my Mastering Query Tuning class in the Parallelism module. Absolutely love that topic. Guðmundur says, Hierarchyid appears to be a CLR data type. Do you see any common performance issues with this data type on large tables? So I would step back further than that and say, regardless of the data type, regardless of whether it's CLR or not, Hierarchyid means self-joins, like parent-child relationships. And because it's unlimited parent-child, even if the data type was flawless, could I imagine having problems on large tables? Of course. Because if you have a 10,000 layer org chart, it's going to suck to try to materialize that on the fly. So absolutely, I'm less worried about the fact that it's a CLR data type. I'm more worried about how we're using that data type. Spitfire, good to see you again as well. Bruno says, thanks for all the tooling and training you provide for the SQL community. You are welcome. Says, looking forward to future training. Absolutely. Just get your credit card out and come on down. Go to brenozar.com and click training up at the top. DBA Todd says, hey, Brent, when I'm enabling accelerated database recovery, is it best to change? And I'm going to stop you right there and tell you that I have no idea. When accelerated database recovery came out in SQL Server 2019, I loved the idea. It's awesome, but it has two problems. One is it was buggy as hell when it first came out. I have every faith and confidence that those bugs have been removed, because I haven't seen any related bugs about it in 2019 or 2022 for at least a year, I think. But two, it takes up space in the user databases instead of TempDB. Normally, the version store lives in TempDB, but accelerated database recovery puts it inside the user databases. You know what I can't believe DBAs still struggle with in the year 2024? Running out of space in their databases. All the time I get people who don't handle it well. They have alerts set up. They get alerts in the middle of the night. They're like, oh my God, I ran out of space on the disk. I only have a 14 gigabyte drive. You know, they have these laughably tiny drives, and they can't get additional space. Well, since most of you are struggling with that, the last thing that you need is a thing that puts more stuff inside those user databases. So if you're in the kind of shop that stays current on your patch levels and you're not worried at all about how much space the user databases take up, then go start learning about this feature. But I haven't had a client like that yet. Jessica says VMware Disk Auto Grow needs to be a feature. Not only that, people need to turn it on. People have this paranoia that they won't give me much space. I only get 200 gigabytes for all my databases. And I'm like, man, I got, extra thumb drives around here that are bigger than that. It's kind of bizarre. So let's see here. Next up, we have Prisha asks, what are the best methodologies for ad hoc copying a single table from production to development? For me, restore. Take the most recent production database, restore it onto the development server, and then just do an insert across there. This way, you're not slowing down production at all. You've already just grabbed last night's backup. No overhead on production whatsoever, just overhead on the development server. I'm all about that. Next up, Giannis says, Jessica says SQL bulk copy if it's a giant database. I'm going to disagree there. I actually don't like that either. I would say go restore the database. People are like, but disk space is really expensive. What did we just talk about? It's not that expensive. Even up in the cloud, you can get it cheap. It's just not going to be fast. But that's my own personal opinion. And then people will always inevitably say, they'll say, what's the best way to do it? And I'll say, here you go. But I can't do that. Well, you just asked me what the best way was. Well, I can't do it the right way. Well, I want to do it some other way. Well, go do it whatever way you want then. Gianna says SP Blitz's reporting system databases are located on the C drive. Is it low or high risk to move these databases? Well, what you do is whenever you're looking at SP Blitz, there's a column called URL. And that can be confusing if you've never heard that term before. That stands for you read loser. It starts with HTTP. You're going to copy that into something called a web browser. And I know you know what a web browser is because that's where you put in this kind of question. You put in that URL into the question, into the URL bar of your browser, and then you go read it. Lovely. I suppose I should say lovely instead of loser. And on there I talk about things like how to do it, what the risks are, and things like that. We pour our hearts into those URLs. The least you could do is read them. Kansas 4444 says, hi Brent, what's your limitations on UTF collations to replace nvarchar? I am very lucky in that I've never had to deal with that. I don't know about very lucky, but I've never had to deal with that, so I don't know. I have no opinion one way or the other. I will tell you, I don't think I've ever heard anyone screaming bloody murder that the UTF-8 collations were a problem. It's not like they have some notorious bad reputation out there. So unfortunately, I can't give you a short answer on that one. I can't give you any answer. I don't want you to think that I'm trying to dodge it. I have no idea whatsoever. Renegade said, it sucks when you have Danish letters. Oh, man. Oh, that's sorry. That's sad to hear that. Next up, Sigrun says, we update stats nightly, but even still there are some tables that will auto-update stats during the day due to a high frequency of activity. Do you have guidance as to when you should disable auto-update stats for a given table and do it manually? Yeah. Often I'll see this on things like a queue table where rows go in and come right back out as soon as they're processed, to which I'll ask, hey, do the stats on this table even matter? Could we just turn off auto-update stats on this table and never update them again? Like, could we just say, we're going to assume that there are always going to be 100 rows in here, or whatever the stats show in here at this particular time, and roll from there? And then one more, the blame bus driver says, is there a good way to know who last modified a given SQL agent job? I have no idea. You might be able to catch it out of MSDB. MSDB might have in the transaction log, because there are transaction log readers that'll read the in-memory parts of a transaction log or the transaction log file, even if it hasn't been backed up. You might be able to catch it that way. Jessica Phoenix says over in chat, manual audit triggers. I like that a lot, because you can actually apply triggers to the MSDB tables on insert updates and deletes and change those. All right, so there we go. There's a fast round of questions. I just got a phone call. Looks like, let's see here, someone's texting. It's probably the delivery driver. Oh, no. Okay. Oh, goodness, no, it's her. Oh, no, I feel terrible. It's a text from friends of ours that we had dinner with last week, and they've been sick now, so everybody's sick. So thanks for hanging out with me during office hours. I hope y'all don't get this. Wash your hands. Don't talk to people. Don't hug people. They're just nothing but walking bags of germs and snot. I swear I watch people when I'm driving and I see them picking their nose and wiping it on places. It's just unbelievable. They're so sick. So thanks for hanging out with me, and I will see y'all on the next office hours. Adios.